Today we're asking a difficult question. Is MAGA a cult? Now, this is not a political discussion, it's a psychological one. No shouting, no slogans, just psychology and the power of understanding today on Off the Couch. And welcome to Off the Couch, where psychology meets everyday life. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, psychologist, here with producer Brian Gomez.
Happy Tuesday, you guys.
And we have Tony Sweet on the board.
Hello, hello.
Today, guys, we're doing this particular episode because of the previous episode, and I think one of you asked, or both of you were asking, either at the end of the episode or after we recorded, is MAGA a cult? And I will tell you, I've gone back and forth in my own head about this particular thing. I try to resist even saying that word in combination with MAGA. So to even do an episode on this was a leap for me. But what I wanted to do was to actually look into the literature and see what the literature says, see what science says, see what the experts say, because I don't like just labeling somebody a cult. So we're going to go through that today, and you guys will tell me if you think it fits. But well, let's just start with where you believe right now. What do you think, Brian?
Well, for me, it's pretty easy. It's giving very much cult. They've got like blinders on and just can't see past whatever they are being fed and are being told to do and the way to behave. And that, for me, that's just culty, you know?
And Tony?
Someone who has interviewed many people over the years for my own show about cult leaders and cults. Yes, I would say it's definitely a definition. If you look up the definition of cult, it fits the category.
So we'll talk about that, how this may or may not fit. But I'll tell you that I first started flirting with this idea because in 2023, and I went back and found this survey. We all have like a moment of truth with ourselves. In 2023, CBS News and YouGov, this is very reputable polling service, CBS News and YouGov did a survey of likely primary voters in the Republican primary. So they're likely Republican primary voters, and they asked them, who tells them the truth? And the Republican voters, 71% named Trump is telling them the truth. And I'm like, dudes, you've got to be kidding. Like, we can see objectively that this man doesn't tell the truth a huge amount of the time. So that was just interesting to me. The rest of the survey was much more interesting. So they said 71% named Trump as telling the truth. Family and friends only got 63%. Conservative media got 56%. And religious leaders got only 42%. So that's what really caused me to go, wait a minute. These Republican primary voters look at Trump as more truthful over their family, over their friends, over the media sources they get information from, and from their own religious leaders. This one had me stumped. So I became interested in this, but still was quite reluctant. So let's talk about what a cult is. A cult is a group centered on a person or an ideology, and it demands absolute loyalty. Yeah, I think I have a bigger definition, a more narrow definition of what makes a cult, because I hear all these things like religion is a cult, or certain religions are a cult. I grew up having to hear this in my own household, that our religion isn't a cult, but that religion's a cult, and blah blah blah. We also hear it about musical groups: Bruce Springsteen, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, the Beehive. That these are cults. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, we all get excited about musical figures and love them, and maybe, can't wait till we line up to buy their albums. There is the Apple cult. Everyone's thinking just because we all lined up to buy iPhones that we're in a cult, as opposed to just really excited about this really superior technology advance. So, I mean, sometimes we throw this word around quite a bit. So I really had to look into it. There's a book written by a man named Stephen Hassan that kind of hits this whole nail on the head. He's a cult expert, and he wrote a book called The Cult of Trump, which is, I have it in, you can actually look in my information. I'll have a link to this book. But he has a 4-part model. He calls it the BITE model. And the BITE model is a cult. What defines a cult is behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotion control. So behavior, information, thought, and emotion. Those are like pretty much how we operate as human beings, at least behavior, thought, and emotion. Maybe just throw in physiology, and then that's sort of how a human is. So information is what comes from the outside. It's part of the environment. Bethany Burham, she's from Harvard. She narrows it down to 2 basic things. She said cults shift people's beliefs rapidly away from broader society and beliefs that they had before they joined. So that combines the information and thought. And the cult members act against their own interests and the interests and their families' interests quite strikingly. This one really tripped me up because I thought of soybean farmers. I thought of all these people that do things to hurt themselves, SNAP recipients who actually got to see these things, who are voting against their own interests when they went to the polling booths. So it really is quite a question. What do you think makes up a cult, you guys? What made you say that yes, it was?
Oh, I mean, if you look at definitions, you can see no matter what Trump does, they know his past, they know his lies, they know his everything he's ever done with, from his university to allegations with Epstein, and it just doesn't seem to even faze anyone anymore. Where 20 years ago, 15 years ago, if anybody had anything, one little skeleton that was minute in their closet, they would be banned from politics completely. So I've heard people say, oh, I don't care if he's a dictator. Oh, I don't care if he killed somebody. I don't care if he's done this, done that. And they still follow him and pretty much make him think like he's Jesus. I mean, it just baffles me to the morals and values that everybody throws out there have gone out the window with him. So to me, if that's not a cult leader, I don't know what else to say he is.
Okay. What about you, Brian?
Well, I mean, I think it's the same thing. It's like when people are just blindly following whatever is spat at them from the top, My whole concern is like, how smart are people that fall into cults, or like what in their brain is like fried, like a fried circuit?
We'll talk about
because
because
at some point, like I'm really genuinely confused on like where you lose like all common sense, just regular knowledge, like facts. Like I'm confused where like these professionals, even big time people that are like just not thinking fully. Like I'm genuinely confused on like what circuit is fried on their brain, because there has to be some sort of like mental decline that doesn't allow them to see like facts or like what the world really is.
Well, we'll talk about that, and I think that's a very good point. Stephen Hassan, who's this cult expert, he wrote The Cult of Trump. He's a psychologist. He is someone I really respect because he actually says some interesting things, and he talks about the psychological component of how this happens. And he talked about something that made absolute sense to me as a cognitive psychologist, that people's identity becomes sort of buried in their head, and they develop this alternate identity outside of itself that acts as pressure against their old identity. So they are told not to have individual thought, to follow along with the leader, to only believe this line of things. And it doesn't matter their intelligence. They've basically turned themselves over to this particular system, this particular belief. He was a Moonie. Stephen Hassan was recruited when he was 19 years old into the Moonies, and he was going to college at the time, Queens College. He talks about this, which I find kind of interesting, because he said his recruitment was these three pretty girls sat down at his table. He had just broken up with his girlfriend, and these three pretty girls sat down and they were flirting with him. They lied to him, saying they were students. They lied to him when he started to suspect they were in some kind of religious organization, said it's not religious. It was just a group of people that really feel strongly and believe in making a better world, like it was a movement that he was going to be part of. And so they basically kind of drew him in, and then he became a member of this cult.
I have a question though, because I know we see this happen a lot in religions all over, that they do become cult-like, or people fall into those cult-like religions. But is it something that's like missing from that person, that this feeling of being part of, or being part of a movement, or like this community, like that's fulfilling for them? Or like, because I'm feel like people that fall into cult are like in search of needing some sort of like help or guidance or faith or something. Or I don't know how people can, I mean, like, yeah, there's artists that, they have a cult like following, and, like the Swifties, it's very culty. I'm gonna just say it out there, I'll probably get hate for that, but like, it's really scary. It's kind of like the same mentality of whatever she does, says, or anything, it's a go. But I'm like, what is missing from these people to fall into cult like activities or, organizations?
Well, I mean, there have been previous looks at those things, that there are often people who don't feel a strong identity, or they feel some kind of loneliness or something missing in their lives. But I think what I was kind of struck by in looking at some of this research is there's more to this tale. Sometimes it doesn't have to be someone who's at a particular pivot point in their lives. Those are probably the easiest to recruit, but it could be somebody that just falls in certain ways. We certainly saw that with QAnon over the pandemic, that people started looking online. Anyone doing their own research, I do my own research, but really I look at other people's research. I don't do my own. I've been taught how to evaluate and look at research, so I go through that. So I guess that's doing my own research, but I don't
just ask Google.
I don't go to Reddit or whatever. I mean, not that that's bad. There are probably lots of great people on that, but I'm just saying I go to the source. Anyway, so there are different things in different studies. I mean, what I was struck by is there was one personality study, if I can just say, about followers of cults, especially the followers of the Trump, followers. They found that there's a certain subset. So it's about 30% are just with him all the way, no matter what. But they even looked at this 10% subset that see him as a god, that see him, that he can do no wrong. They looked at this ultra worshipy group, and they did have some interesting personality things about them. They were high in something called conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is a really good trait. Conscientiousness we all want to have. It's the very thing that allows us to go to work, to be reliable, dependable. It's the thing that can cause us to do things, to have kids and raise them successfully. Almost anything that requires anything to do with planning and focus and practice requires conscientiousness. It is the best trait for work. It's the highest predictor of work success. So that's good, but they had a certain type of conscientiousness. They didn't necessarily have the order component, which is like, I like to keep things, I like to figure out how everything fits together and how everything goes. They had something called, it was basically perseverance. It's a self-directed focus. It's an ability to just stay on something and never let go of it. It's like a dog with a bone. They were the highest in this particular type of conscientiousness. And I thought that was really interesting because that kind of explains the inability to give up. But it's combined with one other thing, which is a lack of openness to new experience. This is probably the openness to new experience. And this is going, if anyone is listening, they're recognizing I'm talking about the Neo 5-factor personality. It's a theory that goes into neuroticism, extroversion, openness. What else was I saying? Neo 5, Neo Pia. Oh, now I'm blanking. But anyway, the thing I'm saying they had the lowest in was conscientiousness as well. But the thing they had the lowest in was openness to new experience, which is the thing you need to be able to open yourself up to other people, other worlds, other experiences, to be able to have empathy, to be able to understand things. It's the person who basically is willing to step out of their rut and go, I wonder what it's like to walk in this mound next to the rut, or I wonder what it's like to walk to the other side of this field and see what that's like. They're not willing to do that.
Do you think they're going to die off soon then? Like, I'm just questioning it as like, as an evolution kind of thing where I'm like, you kind of need that to evolve, don't you think? Where like, if you're not open to, like, I don't know, I feel like we've evolved this far along because humans have been open to new experiences and exploring and all that.
Yeah. I don't think people are necessarily going to give this up. I don't think the people who are involved, who at least this really core group, I think they'll go to their grave worshiping this. Yeah, I truly do.
I've always wondered like where they get this energy from, like they're always attacking other people's rights and everything like that I'm like, where do you get this energy? Don't you have chores? Do you not have to pick up your house? Like, I'm confused.
They're single focus.
But it makes sense what you're saying, that they're so focused on it that they don't need energy or anything,
Well, they get lots of reinforcement from their fellow worshipers, if you want to say that. Let's talk about the 6 classic traits of cults. The 6 classic traits, because this might make a little more sense. I talked about the bite model and that two questions you can ask. But anyway, number 1 is charismatic leadership. So we got to say, does the Trump cult have a charismatic leader? It's a single magnetic leader or ideology who becomes the ultimate authority. Remember that? Followers see them as uniquely gifted, as infallible, as chosen. I mean, I hate to say it, but The Apprentice was one reason for kind of creating this mythology. I lived in New York during the 80s, and he was, honestly, it was well known. I didn't know him, but people talked about him because he was just sort of this buffoon who was inserted himself everywhere, and he didn't have a lot of respect in the city. And they say that's part of his issue, that he always felt slighted or hurt by this particular thing. But it was an interesting, thing. I just never regarded him in a very serious fashion when I was living there.
Was it the same thing for Hitler?
That's true. That's interesting.
It clicked to me where I'm like, wait, wasn't that the same kind of story for Hitler?
True. He couldn't get into art school, and then there were all these other things. Yes, I mean, poor guy. No, he wasn't such a poor guy. I'm sorry. But that it's combined with some other personality stuff because we all have disappointments. I was living in New York, and let me tell you, I may have thought Donald Trump was a clown, but no one even knew I was alive. Does that make sense? Like, I was a nothing in New York, and I was perfectly happy. I loved living there. I had friends. I loved doing things. I had no money whatsoever. I was just having a good time. So Yes, I mean, I think it's very much to do with your personality.
Yeah, because I mean, we've talked about he's a bully, like straight up just a bully, you know.
Yeah.
And most bullies, I feel like, have been bullied as young adults, where I'm like, oh, we're seeing the pattern just play out,
Well, I
you
think
know.
the thing that kind of trips me up too, that it's like a lot of people from the religious right call him as King Cyrus figure, and not to belabor old Bible stories, but King Cyrus was basically this king who was kind of a bad dude, but he was operating for good religious reasons. So they're kind of calling him this particular. You know that Tony, isn't this King Cyrus? Am I describing it correctly?
Yeah,
Tony's
yes.
an expert in religion.
I hope that.
Well, yeah, so the psychology is that charisma activates emotional trust circuits by it bypasses rational evaluation. So if you feel good about somebody, we all know this. When you fall for somebody, you overlook all kinds of flaws in the beginning. This is just puppy love. It happens.
I mean, it's happened even with jobs before for me where I'm like, oh man, I need to like make a personal connection instead because I don't know if I'm qualified for this. And it's worked,
Oh, it works
honestly.
all the time. Are you kidding? Okay, so number 2 is absolute ideology. The group offers an all-encompassing worldview, moral, political, or spiritual, that claims exclusive access to the truth. We know what's going on here. We know how things go. Remember, I alone can fix it. I know how this works. Remember him explaining how he didn't pay taxes? Because I'm smart. I know how to work this stuff. Not I cheated. I'm smart. Complexity and nuance are replaced by certainty. This is interesting too because, Brian, we've talked about in the past, the people of more conservative ideologies often come from a place of fear from their infancy, that they're more fear oriented. People who are more fear oriented, more anxiety oriented, gravitate towards certainty. So I thank goodness that I'm not one of these people. I've got a host of other problems, but for whatever reason, that one I wasn't blessed with. So I mean, I'm perfectly fine with uncertainty a lot of the time. But at the same time, and I like complexity. I feel like I take comfort in complexity. When things are too simple, I'm like, that doesn't seem real to me. So that's my thing. But the psychology around this is that by this absolute ideology, this certainty simplifies chaos into clear heroes and villains. These people are good, these people are bad. Or we're good, they're bad. Be with us, we're the good ones. It reduces anxiety through cognitive closure. Like, I know who the good people are. Remember the squealing about the deep state, the deep state, the deep state, the deep state. And also that you don't hear this anymore. I mean, I guess they get tired of some of their tropes. Like the cabal of Democratic leaders drinking blood. Remember that one?
Oh my God.
Or remember pizza? Was it pizza? Comic Pizza Ping Pong? Whatever it was called. They called it Pizzagate. But it was basically that there was a basement underneath
Oh
a
my gosh.
pizza place where Hillary Clinton was organizing sex trafficking. Like, she had all that time. I mean, this is what, it's like any kind of critical thinking would have said, she ain't got time to do that kind of thing, to sit on the phone dialing out, arranging dates for people. And why would she do that? But there's still people believe this. And they believe that they were selling children to drink blood and all this stuff. I mean, it was really insane, to a point that somebody came there to the Comic Ping Pong Pizza, whatever it was called, and came there with with
Weapons, yeah.
and was demanding to know where the basement is. Of course, there was no basement. This didn't exist. It was just one of these things. So this was the certainty and this sort of, we know the truth that somebody had made up to malign Hillary Clinton, but somebody took so seriously that they went there with weapons to, quote, free the children.
And I feel like it's happened often. That's not just one of them. I feel
No,
like with
no,
the
it's
school
happened.
shootings and stuff.
Well,
I
look
feel
at
like that's
January
happened.
6th.
Yeah.
January 6th is probably a much easier example.
Oh God.
Okay, number 3, us versus them thinking. The world is divided into believers and enemies. Outsiders are seen as corrupt, evil, and brainwashed. This cracks me up because do you remember this? Remember, Democrats are evil and they're communists. Calling Zoran Mondani a communist over and over and over again. I'm like, well, if he were a communist, wouldn't he just say that? He's certainly comfortable saying he's a democratic socialist. He's certainly comfortable talking about so many things. But yet they keep calling him a communist, which is a very different thing. And they don't know that.
They don't.
I guess. But also, remember this that seems to be going away too. I don't hear this as much in the popular culture. Things come and go. The red pill versus blue pill. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I've been red pilled. That meant that you saw reality. So this goes back to The Matrix when Neo, the main character, Keanu Reeves, is given the choice to take a red pill and he would lose the reality he's in, or take a blue pill and stay in the comfort of the familiar. But if you're in the blue pill, you stay in the matrix. But if you take the red pill, you're ejected from the matrix. You no longer are part of the computer program. And they keep saying they're red pilled, but it is almost the opposite, isn't it? That the people who say they're red pilled often have this uniformity of beliefs that don't comport with reality. I just find that very interesting. No?
Oh, yeah.
But
Sorry, I'm just thinking about like everything you're describing about the cults. I'm like, well, are we in a cult too on our side? Because it's like,
it's a
them
great-
being evil, us
what a
being
great
good. 'Cause
question.
I view it as that. Like, I mean, but. And then it sucks because now I sound like I'm just saying, like, I know I'm right, but I'm like, no, they really are evil people. Like, I'm not just,
It
saying
helps me to
that.
know that that's not the case because I'm a strong institutionalist. I believe I believe in the belief in the idea of the government. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in these things, and you can make fun of me about those things, Brian. I believe in the country. I believe in the vision, and we're doing this podcast today. We're recording it on Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day, by the way. We won't say thank you for your service because you asked us not to last year.
Thank you.
But I still said it just then. But yes, so it's, here we are on Veterans Day, and it's a very important day. What happened yesterday? The Democrats caved on the shutdown, and I was so upset. And I'm like, oh, if I were part of, because in looking at this material, I wanted to ask myself that. Are my beliefs drawn around absolutes? Absolutely not. I don't see an us versus them. My favorite thinkers actually are, in fact, moderate Republicans, the real ones, not the ones that are in the Senate or the Congress, but people like, different media figures who've gone on, the folks over at the Bulwark. And these are like when I watch my like information porn. I like to listen to people who are independent thinkers who are like, and they're assessing what's going on. And I don't always agree with their ideas, but that's what really makes me like it, is if I don't agree with all of your ideas, then good. That's great. I don't want to hear just somebody masturbating to what I like.
And then, I mean, just to what happened yesterday, you know how on our last podcast we were talking about, like, how do you have faith in your government when they're doing dumb shit like this?
I absolutely agree. And I won't go into the whole shutdown mess. I was very, very, very upset about it last time and the previous podcast, and I was really upset. The interesting outcome was, though, that night, the election gave me a lot of hope because I'm like, I still believe in the American people. Politicians are fucking, but the American people I still believe in. And so I was right there, and I'm like, why? Now, maybe everything will work out in the end. I really doubt it. And I feel like his cruelty, the president's cruelty in the face of people starving as he's building a ballroom, this was unfathomable. But the Democrats let down the fight for the middle class that was happening here, which was around health care. and the fight for the poor around Medicaid. So I was really, really upset with this. And yeah, it's not as immediate in some ways, but this is going to cause so many people to go without health care. And we're going to see premiums rise for everyone, because the fewer people you have on the plan, the more you have to charge for the ones who are still on the plan. That's just basic
You
economics.
heard what they're going to do now. They
What?
announced today that
What?
the Republicans did say that they're willing to talk about the Affordable Care Act, but the Democrats have to be on board with even stricter abortion regulations. Otherwise, they're not going to talk about the premiums at all.
Well, that's really weird because that's healthcare and it's individual choice. I wonder if there's a workaround, like you could say, "Oh, it isn't covered, but we can't stop someone from doing it." I mean, this is yeah, they're just trying to put that's the concept of a poison pill. They're trying to put a poison pill in so the person doesn't do it. So that's what they're trying to do, so they can say, "Oh, see, we did try to do it, but they put a poison pill in." This is a common tactic in political backs and forths. Okay.
Well, we'll see what they do.
We'll see what they do. They lost their negotiating position, so we can just expect that nothing's going to happen. That's my old political training, which, you know what? I'm not wrong a lot. Okay, we already did us versus them thinking. Number 4 is suppression of dissent. This is quieting the voices that say something. Disagreement is punishment, emotionally, socially, spiritually. Doubt is framed as betrayal. Critics are shamed or expelled. Former members are demonized. I look at John Bolton, the National Security Advisor. He's now criticizing, but he was a big Trump person. He was a member of the administration. He was the National Security Advisor. There are so many people that we can look at who came out of the administration who are saying what was going on there was not so good, and they were being absolutely challenged. There's some people who were part of the previous administration who did things like say, no, the election was done fairly, and now he's suing one guy. I wish I didn't put his name. I forgot his name. But there are all kinds of different examples you can point at where they're going after people who are criticizing them, especially people who've been close to them who are criticizing them. It's saying to the people inside, if you stick with us, we'll pardon you, but if you go against us, we'll go after you.
Well, yeah, I mean, we saw Taylor Swift was very vocal about it in the first election, and now it's like the whole different ball game. You don't hear her say anything about it, and
Yep.
even last week, remember, after the show, we saw that clip of, I think that it was the New York Times interviewing Jennifer Lawrence about her stance on it now, and how before the first election, she was saying very vocal and like very just straightforward about what she believed in. And now she's very quiet, keeps her opinion to herself. And I mean, it's true. It just sucks that like people have to shut their mouths.
Well,
if they
they're
work.
operating from a personal economic model, and I understand it, but I don't like it. And for me, I always tried to keep my mouth shut a little bit. I mean, I certainly have my beliefs, and we talk about things. I'm not untrue to who I am. But I will say that as things get worse, I feel like everyone needs to speak up. I think back on the story of Horton Hears a Who. In Horton Hears a Who, little Horton is an elephant who hears a little peep from a little piece of dust, and he hears, "We are here." You know, like somebody, like the little piece of dust is about to, fall into, I don't know, something really bad. And he puts the little piece of dust onto a little flower, and he walks around trying to get other people to hear it, but other people can't hear it as well. So he can hear it, but the other people can't. And then they get everyone in the Whoville, in the town, to speak up And then everyone makes a noise, and suddenly the noise speaks up, and you hear, we are here, we are here, we are here. And that's what I believe we need to do. We all need to join hands and speak up. So, yeah, Jennifer Lawrence, yeah, Taylor Swift won't, but maybe eventually they'll join the chorus. But, I think it's up to the little man here.
Which sucks because then, like, I don't know. Again, it goes back to that last week episode where we're like, well, we're fucking screwed, it sounds like,
That's
but I mean,
exactly.
like, yeah, we can still have hope and all, but like, it's really hard to be hopeful when like people on top or like people with more power, more money aren't really standing up. When you're like, well, how do you expect the lowest person on the, totem pole to like stand up?
It's a good.
I don't know.
Question.
But it goes to with what you were saying. People are being silenced if they're not,
People
on
are
the
being
same
silenced.
page.
And it's upsetting. Number 5 is information control. And this is big. Remember, we're controlling the environment. Leaders and insiders control access to information and define what's true. Outside media or experts are dismissed as lies or conspiracies. People are told what to think, not how to think. This is like the vocational versus the university model. People often in universities get really they're criticized for not teaching what to think, and they don't teach what to think. And outsiders, usually people who never went to the university, think that's how universities work. They do teach information like history and sociology and astronomy. They teach all kinds of stuff, but they teach you essentially how to think, how to evaluate information. And as you go higher, you do more and more of that, of criticizing information, developing information, producing new knowledge. That's in the PhD level. You're not taught what to think, so you can develop your own models. How to think is the way to go. But I think people in vocational schools, they're basically taught a trade. They're taught what to think. So they're taught, here's what it is. Here's how you do plumbing. Here's how you do electricity. And there's a purpose to that. So we've got to not mix them up. But members here are told, basically the vocational model, don't think on your own. Think what we tell you. So this is very helpful psychologically. It limits cognitive diversity. It promotes dependency on the group for reality reality validation. We saw this controlling information with the moves against Stephen Colbert, his shows being canceled, and the Jimmy Kimmel show being canceled, and people rose up, thank goodness. Larry Ellison, who is behind the Jimmy Kimmel, and he wasn't originally behind it, but he was buying the company, so they got rid of him to make the deal happen. Larry Ellison, who's taking over Paramount CBS. Oh, no, that's Stephen Colbert. I'm getting my people all mixed up, aren't I? And soon to get TikTok. I thought, who bought Jimmy Kimmel? That's ABC.
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, but that's Disney pushing back. That's Disney owns ABC, and they pushed out Jimmy Kimmel. The Stephen Colbert was all about, that's the Larry Ellison, CBS, Paramount. And he's also getting TikTok now. So he is going to have a massive platform to control, and he's one of the Trump insiders. Also getting Facebook to do away with fact checking. I thought that was pretty interesting. And of course there's Fox News. It used to be called Fair and Balanced, but it took that away because that ain't happening and they know it. Okay. And then number 6 is behavioral and emotional regulation. The group dictates what members can do, feel, express from language and lifestyle. Emotional displays are guided. You're told what you can and can't do. Loyalty rituals reinforce commitment, chants, rallies, hashtags, which we saw that happen in full force with the rallies. I go back to thinking like Musk calling empathy a weakness. And so many people, there's now a book out called Toxic Empathy. And the people, they're really trying to identify empathy as the worst thing. Now, Doris Kearns Goodwin, who is a presidential historian, I'll never forget an interview with her where they said, she's a presidential historian. She's looked at every president. She's, written many, many books. And they said, what is the number one trait to make a good president, to make a good leader of a country? And she said, by far, it's empathy. And it's interesting that that very thing is getting attacked here. They don't want a good leader. They want an absolute leader. It's a very different thing. So psychology is the repetition and shared emotions, strengthen neural pathways of belief and belonging. I'm one of them. We are right. We all share the same feeling. And then you get reinforced. There's the reinforcement model. Remember when they made fun of two of the Minnesota governor's son, Tim Walz's son, when he was at the Democratic convention, he was crying for his dad. He was super emotional and clapping and was crying. I mean, it was a beautiful thing to watch. And then they went on this tirade on right-wing media against his emotions.
Well, they were pretty upset when we had different emotions about Charlie Kirk's death. So it was very confusing because they wanted empathy then, but
it is an interesting point. It is an interesting point. You can't demand empathy or even sympathy. And I don't have these demands that other people have to follow what I think. That's one thing I find very characteristics of this group. If you don't believe what they think, you're wrong. You're bad. And I've always believed that we can have diversity of opinion and still be together.
To a certain extent, I would say. Because, no ma'am, that's what got us where we are now.
So all these things, they might make you think that MAGA is a cult, right? Is that you're both thinking yes, no?
Yeah, a very interesting cult, I would say.
Well, let's look at where MAGA may not be a cult. Okay? They do have open participation. There's no physical isolation. Like, you don't have to join. You don't have to separate from your family. That may happen individually, but they don't require it. It's not like you have to go live on the compound or go move to a different country, sell all your belongings. That certainly happens in cults.
Wait, is that Scientology?
Scientology is an example. But I'm not really that expert in Scientology. I always interesting that I became friends with a woman, and she was a wonderful actress. You've seen her on TV, and she was beautiful. And we were doing the AIDS walk together. She goes, hey, you want to do the AIDS walk with me? And I go, great. So we went together. And about halfway through the AIDS walk, she goes, you know what? We've been friends, and I've never asked what you did for a living. And this is true. And I knew she was an actress, and she just knew me from these classes we used to take. And so, actresses don't always want to know every detail about your life. They're expressing their own. But she said, she goes, what do you do for a living? And I said, oh, I'm a psychologist. And she froze up. She said, I can't talk to you. And I said, why? You're a psychologist. I said, yeah, what? Well, I don't get it. She goes, I'm a Scientologist. We're not allowed to speak with you. And literally the rest of the walk, she refused to talk to me. And I said, okay, well, I kept talking to her like, I don't understand what's going on. And it was really upsetting to me because I really liked her. And we got to the end of the walk, and she just walked on to her car. And I was like, I go, bye. I'm so sorry this happened. And that was that. And that was an interesting one. So, yeah, they have more of an open participation. They don't have the physical isolation. No single doctrine or strict hierarchy. In fact, they do have a strict hierarchy. What am I saying? It's within the political structure, but within MAGA in general, there's not really one. But they don't have a single doctrine. I mean, it does vary, almost flexes to whatever group. They do have diverse motivations among supporters. Like, different people want different things. So, that one person's wanting Israel, that's a big one. That one person's wanting, the religious needs. One person's wanting, because they really want to hurt other people. They really want to hurt the immigrants. That's what, when I hear my dad, he's always saying, "Those damn, the immigrants." That's a big motivator. They may hate certain public figures. Put Hillary Clinton in jail and lock her up and all that stuff. So I think they have different motivations that kind of hook them in. Build the wall. I mean, all these things. Those would go back to the slogans, which says is more of. So anyway, many act from political strategy, not psychological captivity. They're MAGA because it brings them power. And I think that's a big thing. We see that with a lot of people.
Brings them power because they've never experienced power, and that's the only one time they've ever experienced it. Or I'm just asking seriously though. Some of these people are like big, rich people that have power.
That's
I'm
right.
confused with what more power they're
I
looking for.
have always been surprised that rich people I've never heard a rich person say, "I have enough." Or a rich person say, "You know what, except for people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, I've heard them say this following," but not probably almost any other rich person I've ever come in contact with. They say, "I want to pay more taxes." Those two have.
Even Billie Eilish recently at this Amazon award thing that she was receiving called, who was it that she called out, Tony? Yeah. And she was like, "There's billionaires in here. Why are you a billionaire?" And she afterwards donated a bunch of money away too, of her own
to
money.
a food bank, right?
I can't remember
I thought
what
that
it was.
was what she did.
$10 million, something. It was a lot of money.
Wow, she's she gave me goosebumps just then. I love hearing stuff like that.
And she's young too, and she doesn't have. She even said that they have more money than her in the room, and she still is giving away money because she's not going to run out of it for giving away that much,
Well, it's funny. Once you get to a certain level, you're not going to run out. The only thing you're going to run out of is how many houses you can buy or how many yachts you can float on or, how many, expensive dinners or diamonds you can put on your throat. I mean, seriously, that's what you're not going to run out of, but you're going to be able to put a roof over your head, have a really wonderful, comfortable life, have a car, be able to, at a certain point, you can afford pretty much all the luxuries without having to go way over the top. It's the people do want to continue to go way over the top. And a lot of the people that I know that are very wealthy are continually afraid of losing it. It becomes a very interesting thing where the people who are in the working class are basically always kind of living on the edge. I mean, losing it is a reality that faces them on a daily basis.
Okay.
I mean, it's real to them. So they have to learn to sit with that ambiguity, where the other ones, it's an abstract idea. I can't tell you, and I've talked to you about people that I've encountered who are extremely wealthy who say things like, "I'm afraid of being homeless." And I'm like, well, that ain't going to happen. So, but I don't say it like that. But I mean, in my own head, I'm like, well, is there a possibility of that? I do sometimes ask that, and they'll say, "No, but," and then they go into the fear. And the fear is what you have to treat. As a psychologist, you deal with the fear.
Gotcha.
There's so much here. I want to skip all my other stuff. There's enough for a book to talk about this stuff. But let's talk about breaking the spell. Oh, why people stay. Well, why people stay, by the way, in these things, belonging outweighs the contradiction, the fear of rejection and shame. So once they feel this belonging, they don't want to leave because then they feel their friends will think they're bad. They'll be ashamed of them.
They are.
And the isolation outside the group, they feel when they're not a part of the group, they have no friends again. The purpose and empowerment inside. We've talked about the power of purpose, how important that is, and that this gives them a purpose, gives them power. They feel like they have power. And they also sunk costs. They've put so much into this that they don't want to let it go. And they have this cognitive dissonance that the more that's why you can't argue with somebody. You can't argue with somebody because the more you present opposition information, the more they dig their heels in, because that's what they need to do to resolve their cognitive dissonance. The leader always speaks the truth, and the leader said, this is black. You say it's white. You show me a picture showing me it's white, and you're like, here it is, white, and I'll be like, either I have to believe you and think the leader's wrong, or I'll just resolve to say the leader's always correct. That's a version of black that you're showing me, or you're just flat out lying that that's what black is, or that white is the color. You know, I have to do something to maintain that the leader always tells the truth. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that develops the echo chambers, why we turn to our news sources, etc. So how do you break the spell? If you're in MAGA, no, I'm quite certain no one in MAGA is listening to this, but if you are, this is how you do it. Reconnect with your non-political identity. That's your clubs, your information, friendships, people who aren't members of MAGA. That's really important. Just reach out to them. Seek multiple news sources. I've said this 1,000 times. The people I know that are most, and I have people that I'm close to who, people do ascribe to this, people, family members, they don't seek multiple news sources. And this is always an interesting thing to me. Question your own emotional reactions to things. Engage with empathy, even if you think it's toxic. Like, try to put yourself in someone else's shoes and ask things like, what if I'm wrong? Which was a great question you asked earlier. For helping others, never attack. 3 things. So if you have a friend or a family member of MAGA, never attack the leader, never attack Trump. We kind of did today, but oh well. We're not going to get anyone out of MAGA with this podcast. Never attack the leader, never attack the doctrine, and never attack the policy. This is from Stephen Hassan. I thought this was great advice, because when you attack them head on, people dig in deeper. Okay? If you're going to help others out, lead with compassion, not confrontation. Keep the communication open. Ask curious questions. Engage critical thinking. Encourage critical thinking. Ask that what if. Ask about yourself. Put yourself in that position. Celebrate independence. There are a whole bunch of approaches that can really work for this. Brian, I made a long kind of quiz, and I put it in the handouts. So they'll be in the handouts, youtube.com/Dr. Greg under this episode. You go in the show notes, it'll say handout. Click on the handout, and it has the quiz. Basically, am I a member of this cult? And it's basically a political ideology. It doesn't necessarily say for MAGA. It just says you can just think of whatever. You can think of your own, Democratic or whatever you're thinking for yourself. Or if you like Mamdani, communist, I guess. But go through and ask yourself those questions. I was really upset I loved his speech on one level. I did. He said, I hope to never say his name again. I'm like, dude, I would hope you say to, look, I'm here for even you, Mario Cuomo. I'm the mayor for the entire city. And that was the only thing I kind of
I agree.
I just wanted him to say, I'm here for everyone. He said, everyone but. And that kind of goes with the people that voted for him. So I'm like, dude, you missed your opportunity to do the we're all in this together.
But we're not.
Well.
So I think he was just being straightforward. And I kind of would rather have that than some political game phase to stand in front and act a certain way, because we've seen how that's been happening, and we've seen how that's been happening on our side too, and they're getting nowhere.
Well, and maybe that's true. I do think everyone needs to give him a chance now. It's an extremely hard city to run, historically extremely hard. The biggest city, it's bigger than most countries. I mean, there's just so many people. So it's not a small task to take on New York City. And there's a lot of entrenchment. So I wish him the very best. I honestly do.
And do you think we should try to get these MAGA people out of these cult-like scenarios? Because I don't know, man. Why are we having to also put that effort and
You
teach
don't
and
have
like
to. You don't
handhold
have
these
to. You
people? I
don't
don't care
have
if it's
to.
family or friends or what. Like, I'm still very just like I can't accept you having much brain cells if you're in that. And I feel like that's very cult like thinking of me, to think this way, but I genuinely am like, if you can't see what it is, I'm worried about your mental
You can't
state.
see. Yeah, well, I mean, people are trying their best. So, takeaways here: cult dynamics appear in politics, religion, and fandom. We talked about with Taylor Swift, etc. The antidote is actually awareness, empathy, and dialogue. Ask questions, challenge their certainty, ask more questions. Don't don't assert what you think is true. Ask them questions because those questions will land and they'll keep in their head and it will start to challenge their own rigidity. That's how therapists do it. Freedom begins with thought over faith. And actually, it's how therapists do it. They don't try to brainwash someone. They try to, in fact, make them less rigid in their thinking, and people go toward what they want. That's the whole thing. So, this is a tough one. So, is it a cult? I'm still like, I'm probably more there, but I'm probably still not quite myself. But you guys, what do you think?
I mean, I still think it is, but and I believe, like you said, there's a lot of people that'll never change their mindset. I mean, until
I
Trump came along, it was still Ronald Reagan party, and
Yeah,
then
that's
now
right.
it's Trump party. So I think, unfortunately, even after Trump's gone, for generations, that
It's gonna linger.
yeah, that mentality is going to be around.
Well, the damage is done. Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. I do believe that. But I wish we could talk more about this, but now we have to
I
go.
know.
So sorry. So subscribe and comment. By the way, go and let us know. Do you think it's a cult? Why do you think it's a cult? Thanks for joining us. And if you don't, please say why. Like, we want all opinions. Thanks for joining us on Off the Couch. If you saw yourself in today's patterns, take a breath. You're not broken. You're just human. And remember, insight is the first step, but action is what moves the needle. So does social support. So share this episode with a friend too. That'll be great. Don't forget to rate, review, and follow Off the Couch. We never say that at the beginning. I only say it at the end. Let's start. We'll start doing that. But we got some great reviews on Apple, Spotify. I mean, so that's all very much appreciated. Thank you guys. Links to the studies, go to youtube.com/Dr. Greg. The handout. Oh, I have a link to the book, and I have a link to a movie I want everyone to watch called Kumare. It's really probably the very best treatment of a person who develops. He basically is a fake cult leader and talks about the development of that process and how he gets people to follow him and how he starts to believe his own stuff.
I'm gonna watch that because I've been thinking about starting my own. So.
Oh, well, you definitely have to watch. Hit us up on socials, and until next time, be present, be flexible, and be kind.